You're listening to the Afterbuzz TV Network, now the largest new media platform on the web, and your #1 source for after-show entertainment.
Very good, Keith Johnson.
The Afterbuzz Studios in Los Angeles, California, presented by Maria Menounos and Bing.com, and streaming live thanks to Akamai Technologies. This is Afterbuzz at the Movies.
Greetings, everybody. Bing is for doing, what are we doing? We're doing Afterbuzz TV's At the Movies, here to talk about the new film, Identity Thief. My name's John Campea. I'm the senior editor, actually, over at AMC Theaters Movie News. And I'll let these other two fine folks across me introduce themselves.
Aren't you just sweet? Hey, guys. What's up? I'm Chris Lee Kennedy.
Hi, I'm Dan Devey from thecinemassource.com.
And as I already mentioned, we're here to talk about the new film Identity Thief. Just a little bit of a word of warning here. We're going to make an assumption here that you've seen the movie, so there may be some spoilers in this episode.
Spoiler alert.
So just be alert and be ready for that. All right, let's talk about this. Let's talk, first of all, let's do an umbrella here that we didn't do last time. Quickly, just your general impressions of Identity Thief. Dan, let's start with you.
Should have been funny.
Why
my general
did I
impression.
sit next to you? Oh, elbow.
Chris Lee.
Loved it. Thought it was great.
Wow.
I really love movies. I swear. It's just lately. Oh, man.
I'm going to be the middle child. I'm going to fall somewhere in between these two guys. Let me start off my whole thing with this. I was just talking to you guys before we started shooting about this. I have this philosophy, and the philosophy is this. In a horror film, you can do almost everything wrong in a horror movie. If you scare the audience, they will forgive you for everything else that's been done wrong, and they'll walk out with a good experience. Much is true the same of comedies. You can do almost everything wrong in a comedy. If you make the audience laugh, it will forgive a multitude of sins. They'll forgive a lot if you make people laugh. And for me, this is a movie that did both. It did everything wrong, and it made me laugh, and maybe by the end of this show, I'll have a better idea about what I actually think about it. Between these two guys playing for the prosecution and the defense. But let's start this thing off. Let's talk about Melissa McCarthy in this film. So, Chris Lee, your impressions of Melissa McCarthy. This is really the first film I think we're watching her in where she is the lead. She's carrying the movie. Your thoughts on her performance?
I thought she was great. I thought we saw a range of emotion with her that I totally did not expect out of this film. And I appreciated her. I appreciated her at her loneliest, her saddest, and at her most manipulative. And I thought she was funny, and her lines and the way she delivers them, I thought were brilliant.
Dan?
I think she's great. I think she is the leading lady for the 21st century. I really think she is. I think everything you said, I completely agree with, which is why I can't understand why it wasn't funny. She's so good. And Jason Bateman is the perfect straight man. How these two together on screen was not funny makes no sense. That just... don't get it.
Melissa McCarthy is a really, I thank God for Melissa McCarthy in her presence in movies today. She is not your Hollywood stereotypical leading lady.
Thank God for that.
Right.
Yeah, and thank God for that. I mean, look, I'd be remiss if I didn't at least stress this. Rex Reed made some comments this week about Melissa McCarthy, basically making some disparaging remarks about her weight. And let's call a spade a spade. Melissa McCarthy is not a thin woman. No. She's not. But you know what? If she was 125 pounds, she wouldn't be Melissa McCarthy. It's almost like a John Candyism about her. There's something about the way she plays her entire persona. And that her body stature is a part of what makes her so wonderful. And I think she's great. I don't think you can get away with half of the things that she does if she's not who she is. She embraces who she is, she lives it loudly, and she puts it out on screen. My criticism of Melissa McCarthy is that so far we've seen her in a few roles. She's the exact same person every time. She's the exact same person every time. But you know what? As for me, as long as that person that she's portraying on screen works, keep doing it. You know, it's funny, right before this film started, they had the trailer for, what's the new one she's doing with Sandra Bullock?
Oh, that looks so funny.
Is it Heat? No, not Heat.
Heat.
I think it is.
Is it just Heat?
I think it is.
I feel ridiculous that I'm forgetting. But But again, it looks like the same. She looks like the same character and talking like the same character from Bridesmaids. But you know what? It works. And as long as it works, I want to see her keep doing it. And I thought she was hilarious. We'll get to how effective the comedy was in a little bit. Now let's go to her co-star in the film, Jason Bateman.
Well, wait, if I could just say one thing before we jump to Bateman. I have to disagree because I think this was the movie where we got to see more levels to Melissa McCarthy. Those moments when you feel sad for her, when she's lonely, she does it very subtly. She does it kind of right below, and then it swells up a little. And I think one of the reasons why I didn't like it is because I felt really bad for her. I felt so bad for how sad she was, how many things were happening to her, the physicality, which we definitely have to talk about. I think we saw a lot more from her acting range-wise in this than we've ever seen before.
See, that's the scene you're referring to when she's in the hotel restaurant with Jason Bateman, and she really starts to reveal her history and lots of things about her. To me, I equated that to the scene in Bridesmaids when she's sitting down with Kristen Wiig and kind of explaining that she didn't have a great past. You know, and I kind of equated the two, but I see what you're saying, and it is definitely a wider range than she did in Bridesmaids. Jason Bateman is another guy who is the exact same guy in every single movie.
Yeah.
He is the same guy in this as he was. What is the body switching movie he did with Ryan Reynolds? I wish I should have looked this up in advance, but I didn't. But he's the same guy in that as he is in just about everything he does. But it's the same thing. It works. I love him in this role. He's the best on the planet right now in this role, and I really like the way he played off of her. Chris Lee, what did you think of him?
It's the change up that you're talking about.
Thank
Ryan
you very
Reynolds.
much. Yes.
And it's the same thing. Like, he does play the exact same role, but he's really funny.
Yeah.
And he just has this mannerism about him and this swagger when he walks that he's believable. Like, you believe that he would go do this because this is what he's been pushed to, and he gets a little crazy, and I liked his performance a lot.
Dan?
Yeah, I mean, you've got the one poster for it, the one sheet where it's him smiling, and the caption is, "Does this look like a sucker?" And it's like, yeah, he's perfect, exactly. Yeah, I think he's great. I think he's the ultimate straight man. I think which should have counterbalanced McCarthy's like kind of crazy antics really well. And I think it just suffered from, it not being funny. It should have been funny. I thought both of them working together should have been great, but it just, for me, didn't come together.
It's funny, too, that we've all kind of mentioned Bridesmaids, because I think one thing that people are not going to notice about this film that they also didn't notice about Bridesmaids that I felt was there were some great funny parts in both of these movies. There was also some really sad parts about people being lonely, and that, to me, overshadowed all the funny in Bridesmaids. And to me, this was a really funny movie, but became so much more of a feel-good, you want to hug someone after you see it, which I didn't expect, and I felt the same way with Bridesmaids.
Wow, it's funny. I'm sitting on the side of the table disagreeing with both of you for completely different reasons. Because I do think it's funny, but I did not feel any of that warmness that was in Bridesmaids. Like, for instance, I had a very hard time feeling any empathy for the Melissa McCarthy character. She stole and ruined people's lives for a living. And one of the things I think this movie did really wrong, whereas Bridesmaids, yes, it's a comedy, but it follows through to the trueness of the human nature, you know? And I find in Identity Thief, it doesn't do that at all. Jason Bateman shows up and she's like, hey, I just want to make a deal with you. You come, walk away, blah, blah. No, you destroyed my life. You've wrecked my kid's life. You took my job away from me. You did da-da-da-da-da. She destroys people's lives. I had no empathy for her whatsoever.
She was lonely.
She was sad.
Oh.
She had no friends.
I felt so, the minute
she had to buy drinks for people to pretend that she had friends.
The minute that happened.
Wow.
Did I just go really far with that? But I mean, I don't care.
Hyperbole station. Here we are.
Yeah, that's why I didn't buy that. I just can't. I'm sorry. If I'm Jason Bateman in that situation, you just destroyed not only my life, you destroyed my kids. And I have nothing but anger and rage towards you.
You know, I will say in the beginning of the movie, that's how I felt. In the beginning of the movie, I thought, oh my God, throw her in jail, kick her ass. But it didn't take long of watching her as a character for that to fade away for me. The problem that I had with it, and this is probably one of the main reasons why I didn't think this was a funny movie, was that the physicality was too intense. It was too real. There's supposed to be pratfalls. It's supposed to be pie in the face. But instead, it's a guitar to the face. It's getting hit by a car. And it's not done. Look at you people. Oh, my God. No, terrible, terrible.
Hysterical.
This poor, sad lady who just wants friends just got clocked in the face with a guitar.
She punched him in the neck.
Yeah, but she's a girl and he's a boy.
Yeah.
Like, here's the thing. Like, if you're Kate Beckinsale and you're in Underworld and you're kicking ass and an opponent comes up and he starts to kick her ass, totally on board. I think that's great because she has a valid chance of beating him. With Melissa McCarthy, she just reminded me of my mom. It's like, stop hitting my mom.
No. And with the
I thought it was too much.
With Jason Bateman's character not yelling and screaming and being more angry, they set him up to be a pushover.
That's
so I
true.
never expected him to be like angry, crazy man that I would have liked to have seen because I feel like that's what I would have done. But he was a pushover, and we know that from The Office. We know that from his friends. We know that a little bit from his wife. Like, he's a pushover, and he's not gonna kind of have the balls to do that.
I will say this: the moment that I felt some empathy for Melissa McCarthy did not come in that scene with Jason Bateman when she's telling her sob story. Because once again, in the film, I had no idea whether to believe it or not. The moment I actually felt some sympathy for her was when she left the hotel room with Stone Street still laying in bed, and she looks at the picture of Jason Bateman's kids, and she has a crisis of conscience. And in that crisis of conscience, she turns around and goes back in the hotel room. And that was the one moment of the film that I'm like, okay, there's something to her. There is something more to her. We're seeing some evolution in the character. And in that scene, I will admit, I did see it. Addressing the physicality, this is one of the things Melissa McCarthy does so well. I mean, she did it so well in Bridesmaids. She does it really, and once again, going back to Bridesmaids, but that's our main exposure to her so far, so that's a fair comparison. The guitar to the face I thought was great. I think if he hits her with a pillow, knocks her down, it doesn't have the comedic effect. But the biggest physical gag to me was right near the beginning in the bar you were talking about, when she decides she's going to jump for the chandelier.
Brilliant.
That's funny.
That was great.
That was funny because she was doing it to herself, and that's just funny. That's comical. It's when a man just manhandles a woman in that way when there's no, like, I mean, if they did it and there was a slide whistle in the background or there was something to say like, hey, everybody, this is really just funny, I thought every time it happened, it had a really serious edge to it that I thought didn't match comedy, what it was supposed to be.
I thought it was
And
hysterical.
I was laughing myself silly.
Me
Let me
too.
talk for a second here about a couple of the supporting performances and characters in this. The first one is Amanda Peet, who I will admit right now, in my life, I have had 4 celebrity crushes. In order, Courtney Cox, starting with her performance in Masters of the Universe, and then going into the Jim Carrey film.
Mask?
No, prior to that. That was Cameron Diaz.
That was Cameron Diaz.
Yeah.
Ace Ventura, the first Ace Ventura film. That was followed by Cameron Diaz in The Mask, which was then followed by Amanda Peet, which was then followed because of her performance in The Whole Nine Yards.
Amazing.
Which was then followed by Jessica Garner, who, with all apologies to Ben Affleck, I will still have her one day. So Amanda Peet's in it, and I light up like a Christmas tree whenever Amanda Peet shows up in something. To me, she can do no wrong. She's great. The other person getting up, and I want your guys' impressions when I give these guys to you as a pair. The other is Stone Street, who plays Cam on Modern Family, who I like Modern Family so much that just when he showed up on screen and I realized it was him, my whole mood in the movie changed. I got suddenly so expent. I'm like, yes, I was like so, and he didn't disappoint. He made me laugh with almost everything that came out of his mouth, including when he started to give his sob story. So I was really pleased to see that. And I should also point out, because she's got a bit of a crush on me, is Genesis Rodriguez. Genesis Rodriguez, she's popping up everywhere right now. Like, we just saw her in the Schwarzenegger film The Last Stand. She was in Man on a Ledge. She was the main romantic love interest in Will Ferrell's Casa de Mi Padre. I mean, she's really popping up all over the place right now. She's blowing up, and I think she's actually a wonderful young actress. I think she's going to be great. So some of the supporting performances, what stood out to you guys?
She annoyed me so bad.
Genesis?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
T.I., I think he's funny. I think he's great at like the quirky little lines. She annoyed me throughout the entire film. I was like, why is she even there? It could be just him and I would be fine with it. She thoroughly annoyed me. And I kept saying, like, where do I know her from? Amanda Peet, I always enjoy her. I think that she's pleasantly surprising all the time. I wish they had given her a little bit more to work with. I wish we had.
Me too.
I wish she had a couple more, because she's really good at delivering great lines and funny lines, and I wish they had given her a little more of that. And yeah, I mean.
Yeah, the whole Genesis TI line, I think the question is really, why was that even there?
It was
There was another.
Yes.
There
Didn't
was
need to be there.
There was another subplot about a Boy Scout troop that was after them too. Did you guys?
So
There was a
weird.
Boy Scout troop through line where they were trying to get them for some reason, and they cut it for time. But I just thought, thank God, how much more confusing does this thing need to be? But actor-wise, Amanda Peet, I love Amanda Peet. To just demonstrate how much I love Amanda Peet, my last girlfriend in college looked just like Amanda Peet, and I think that extended things for a little while, if you know what I mean. So I absolutely adore her, love her. I think she's gorgeous. I think she's great. And the rest of the supporting cast, I just felt like there were too many other things going on. T.I., Genesis. I mean, T.I.'s got that one note, and he sings it.
But you bring up a great point, and here's what it is. It's good to have side plots, but do something with them.
Yeah.
Take them somewhere. I'm sorry, you've got some criminal mastermind, the dude from Breaking Bad, in prison calling the shots, blah, I want her dead, and then they just kind of drop it. You don't go anywhere with it, and look, somebody help me understand this part here. They get arrested in the film. So you got Melissa McCarthy, Jason Bateman get arrested for theft and larceny and impersonation, blah, blah. They escape out of the back window of a cop car, and I was not aware, now I'm Canadian, I wasn't aware that in the United States there's a getaway Scotsy-free law. That if you escape custody, the police have to forgive you for whatever it is you did and not chase you anymore.
Yeah, that's your reward for getting out of the car, isn't it?
Why does he not end up in jail at the end of the movie? Look, what's going on? And wait a minute, just because they got booked, these hitmen got booked, that's it? They're going to let everything go now? That criminal mastermind in prison isn't going to go after Melissa McCarthy in jail?
Right.
What?
Yeah.
What? None of this made sense to me whatsoever.
There were too many things going on at once. It was like first the gangsters want them, and then we have the other guy that's in the van that wants them, and it was just too much at once, I think.
Yeah, and trying to rationalize it in a logical way in real life terms is impossible because the cops don't give up. They don't and if you escape, they're going to be even madder. They're going to hunt you down, and they're not going to care what state you're in at the time. Like, it's not going to be, well, jurisdiction here is tricky, so we're just going to let you go. It's like, that's not going to happen. Insane.
Now let's get to the comedy part here, because that seems to be the biggest issue of strife amongst this table here, is the issue of comedy. I thought this was a film that is not a funny film, but was a film with many moments of good, funny moments. I thought it had great, funny moments. The weakness, though, came in. None of the humor strung itself together. Let's look at it's almost an unfair comparison. What I think is one of the greatest comedies of the past 20 years is The 40-Year-Old Virgin. A lot of the humor is built upon itself. Because the line 20 minutes into the film, what makes that line so funny is the thing that happened 5 minutes previous, and so on and so forth. It wasn't a film of isolated moments for quick jokes to be thrown in. And that's what Identity Thief felt like to me. It's like some writers sat around, had some great idea for some gags and some physical gags, and said, okay, now let's just put a movie together so we can stuff these into it. So you have these moments. I found myself laughing a decent amount during the film, especially the guitar to the face. I gotta disagree with that. And I'm laughing, but I'm realizing none of these laughs are built upon previous laughs. Because you watch a 40-Year-Old Virgin, the laughs get stronger and stronger and stronger and stronger because it's all built on everything that comes before it. In this, it was individual gags that had some punch, but they were in a terrible story with terrible side plots, and none of the humor was connected together. That was my impression of it. But Dan, you didn't even think it had laughs at all.
It had two laughs for me. It had in the hotel when he does the elephant thing with his belt. And
I love that.
really funny.
He was
and
brilliant.
Interestingly enough, that was an improv, totally not in the script. Second moment that I found hysterical was when they're in the car and she's asleep with her eyes wide open and she starts to drool. That to me was absolutely hysterical. Also improv, unscripted. I think the reason why there were only those 2 moments for me is that the director, for whatever reason, didn't embrace the improv enough on set, because like, okay, you've got a script and I don't care how funny you try to make it beforehand. You hand it over to Melissa McCarthy and Jason Bateman, they will improve on it. They will come up with something in the moment that is better. And if you don't let them do that, you're keeping your ace in the hole. You're never using it. So I feel like this movie suffered because they tried to stick too much to a script that, if they had been able to play around with it a little more, and if they had changed it tonally a little, could have been really funny.
But your beard doesn't smell like sandwiches. I loved the one-liners, but I do wish it was a little bit more consistently funny. I wish that from the beginning to the end we were laughing a little bit more. The only thing I kept comparing it to while I was watching it, which I'm a big fan of, so I'm probably going to get crucified by saying this, I'm a huge fan of Miss Congeniality. I think that movie was
the first one's great.
Yeah.
hysterical,
Yep,
and I
great
liked that it was still a feel-good movie, and I kept going back and forth with this because there were some similarities. But with Miss Congeniality, from beginning to end, I was laughing. And with this, there was parts that I was just like, okay, what's going to happen next? So it wasn't as consistently funny as I would like, but as a whole, I thought it was pretty good.
All right, well, let's wrap this thing up and give this thing our score. So, quick wrap up on it, and your score out of 5, Dan.
All right, because I love Melissa McCarthy so much, and I think Jason Bateman is incredibly talented, I'm going to go with a 2.5. Oh. I still think it could have been light years better than it was, but I think I might also be to blame because I did empathize maybe too much with her character. That stopped me from being able to laugh at her because I really felt bad. I mean, the scene in the restaurant when she has to cry to get the free food, and she's like, I want the baby back ribs, and I want this, and I want that, and he's like, stop eating, stop eating. I was like, you're being mean.
Oh, and I was
Stop being so mean to her. Like, it was, and so maybe I'm just emotionally a little too connected to Melissa McCarthy to be objective when things were funny. So,
Crystal?
I'm going to go with a 3.5. I think that it was funny. I think that it was great. Everyone in the theater that was around me, they actually laughed more than I did. So I may have been missing some things, but I thought that it was, for what it was, I thought it was great and fun and feel good. And at the end, I was like, that was really cute. It was warm.
Like I said, I'm split right down the middle between you two, but I'm going to fall more towards Dan. I'm also going to give it a 2.5. I did think it was funny. I thought it did have laughs, but it lacks sorrowfully in every regard as far as the story, the script, and the side characters and the side plots and logic and lots of other things that I can't really recommend. And before I forget, we keep saying Bridesmaids. I think Melissa McCarthy's greatest moment, I don't know if you saw it in the credits scene, Melissa McCarthy in This Is 40. If you watch the credits scene, when they're in the principal's office, they show her riffing. And that whole scene is just her riffing and making up as we go. And when she tells the principal, I'm glad your husband's dead, and all this kind of thing. Oh, this is some of the funniest stuff. It was absolutely the funniest part of This Is 40. So I'm going to go with you, Dan. So we got 2 2.5s and 1 3.5.
Oh, and there was also, I'm sorry, one other thing I wanted to throw in there. The scene with the snake with Jason Bateman.
Oh, yes.
This, I found this fascinating because I thought to myself, oh my God, he must be so grateful that CGI exists that he didn't have to go through this.
Real snake.
Do you know they filmed it with a real snake? He went through it, and then afterwards they were like, nah, didn't look as good as CGI. We're just going to go with the CGI. So it wasn't even used. The man had a huge snake crawling up his leg for no reason.
From what I understand, they actually did use it. They used it as like a lot of the body that you see is the body, and then the animated parts of it to do the thing. So I don't think he did it for no reason. I think it actually worked a little bit there in their favor.
I mean, just hearing that because this was during the press with him,
right?
And I was like, wow, you must be so happy you didn't have to do that. He's like, oh no, sir, I did have to do it, and they didn't even use it. It's like, ooh, sucks to be you.
All right, guys, well, that about wraps it up for us. We rated the movies, and so now we want you to go on iTunes and rate us. Tell us what you like, what you don't like, comment. Let us what you know if you saw the movie, because we read them and we like to hear what you have to think. Tell everybody where they can find you guys.
You can find me, Dan Devey, at thecinnamasource.com. That's thecinnamasource.com.
You can find me at amctheaters.com and on Twitter at John Campea.
And you guys can find me on Twitter at Chris Lee. Let me know what you think and what movies you want us to cover next. Thank you for joining us for another movie after show at AfterBuzz TV, and we'll see you next time.
From Bing.com, executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.